crap. Good afternoon, friends. I'd like to welcome you today to What's in Tegan's Storage Locker. It's the show that dares to ask the question, just what is in my storage locker? The answer today, as pretty much every day, it's comic books. I grab a fistful of comic books from, well, here, there, and everywhere. We look through them on the television screen or the computer screen or your tiny little phone for your entertainment. There's a little cat who likes to run in and out of the action here, and I just threw the little rattly ball around with him for a good 10 minutes, so maybe that'll mollify him for the time being. All right, let's get started here with some X-Men. I didn't do any X-Men or Spider-Man last episode, so got to start right off the bat with a big pander here. X-Men Unlimited, number 7 from, what about that have been 96, I want to say? 94, December 94. I was a little bit, yeah, all right. I wasn't thinking right. X-Men Unlimited, it must have started in 1993 then. It was a quarterly. Every issue was over double size. It was a big comic book. And at least in the first run of it, they did their best to get decent artists for it so that it didn't feel like a superfluous package. And then later on, they fell behind, I think. But towards the end, it got interesting again when it became more of an anthology, short stories. There's some very good names in the last run of the first volume of X-Men Unlimited, and some good names in the early run of it as well. Liam Sharp does an issue. Now this issue, despite the early Steve Epting cover here with Storm, it's a John Romita Jr. joint with Joe Rubinstein inking. So, classic team. Howard Mackey writing, so they're dealing with Storm's history in Egypt, so they're starting off in Cairo. Oh boy. Man, I still remember seeing this one in the theater, because of course I saw this one in the theater. It was a movie experience. That's for certain. All right. Oh, there's Remy smoking a cigarette. Things you can't do in contemporary Marvel Comics. So we're recapping Storm's history with she's traveling with Jean and Gambit. So I guess two people she's closest to in the X-Men. Or at least at this point in time, you would say. All right, so her parents die in a bombing. She becomes an orphan, and so she ends up just living on the street and learning by growing up that way, becoming a thief. Oh, and here's Chandra. Candra? I guess it depends on how posh you feel like being that day. Man, the externals, that was Howard Mackey. He was really invested in the externals here, and I don't know. Stay close, my friends. We now enter a part of the city that few outsiders see. So they're wandering the city, and of course Jean gets her purse stolen. And she shouldn't have probably stolen a purse from an X-Man. There you go. And it's so nice. It's so nice. John Romita Jr., you're in good hands. It reads effortlessly. It's got that mid-90s thing he was doing after he worked on Man Without Fear with Frank Miller. I think he had a couple sort of wilderness years before Amalgam, the Thorion one-shot, that really got him to open up and have a Kirby phase. And so the later part of the decade is when he does his, I think, 99, when his Thor launches. And that's a big Jack Kirby move from him. You could really tell it was a leap from where he had been. Oh, well, that's a charming ad for a Contra game. There you go. That was for the Genesis. I guess they don't do Contra anymore. I haven't heard of that franchise in a while. Leather, what is this called? Lethal Enforcers 2, Gunfighters. Oh, so you're just shooting stuff. All right, there you go. In a cowboy. Yeah. Always a few Western games out there. Western never completely died. They just don't do as many of them as they once did. Man, they're really getting a lot of mileage out of Gaiman smoking this damn cigarette. I have to say, Storm has never looked better here. She looks great. Jean's just, well, you know my opinion on Jean Grey. She's present. She's present. Oh, and here's a Egyptian thief character. Straight out of Aladdin. You know, it's a 90s Marvel comic book. Does Egypt really have these medieval, back alleyways filled with, urchin thieves? I don't know. It's well drawn, at least. Impressive. Didn't think you had it in you to handle a street brawl. I'm not going to try to attempt even a poor French accent, but just assume that he's speaking in a bad Cajun accent. All right, so Condra's doing something with the kid who the X-Men just punked. Oh, so she's visiting someone who she knew as a child. Oh, okay, so she's visiting her old teacher. All right, there you go. That makes sense. And, to a degree, for a while, he's still drawing like Al Williamson is going to be inking him. Yeah, he did a fair amount of X-Men. He did X-Men. He had his second run on Uncanny X-Men after, I don't know, maybe about a year after the Image Exodus. They just put him on that book again for a while. So he drew a fair amount of X-Men in the mid-90s, and it's not bad-looking work, but you can tell it's between periods of major inspiration for him. It's nowhere near as far out as his Cable. He hadn't quite gotten to his Jack Kirby phase. And, working with Miller with Man Without Fear, that was also a valuable experience for him. He's someone who was very receptive to learning, to having influences. He has a very distinctive personal style that he's developed. So he's not afraid to incorporate. Oh, more of these X-Men VHS tapes. Man, can you imagine a universe where you had to pay? Now, of course, you could just record it off the TV on your own VCR if you wanted, God forbid. But you could pay $15 for the VHS tape at Toys R Us. All right, so people talking. Oh, penny for your thoughts. But it isn't an X-Men book unless someone's asking penny for your thoughts. Oh, they're in their costume. I like how she's just scooting along here. In a crouch. I don't know why that makes me laugh. Man, those are some wide shoulder pads. Going to town with those. All right, so they're going after these punks, doing something that that's nice. That's nice. Doing something that the old man asked her to do on his deathbed. So of course she's gotta help, whatever it is, and that's where Chandra comes in. Is she dead? No, she's not dead, because I'm sure they brought her back for Krakoa, because they brought everyone back for Krakoa. Oh, and she's gonna get crushed by a brick wall, and that's her big weakness is tight spaces. But Jean Grey is on the case. That's the least Jean Grey can do. If you're keeping that woman around, that's the least she can do, is keep a brick wall from falling on you. For what you have to put with for keeping her around, that's the least she can do. So Storm is she's losing it because she doesn't like being in confined spaces. It's really bad for her. So she's mad. She's angry. That's a nice Storm. So yeah, Jean Grey just gets her angry. So she goes out on the prowl for this person here. How to hypnotize anyone in 6 minutes. Wow, I don't remember that. That's like an ad from 10 years previous. That most of the, children's novelty stuff, like the karate handbooks, it had been phased out in the ads by this time. Oh, you can order a Venus flytrap. Oh, there you go. Another nice. It's maybe not top shelf, John Romita Jr., but, it's interesting. It's nice looking. You're not going to get a bad comic book with him. And, these are just like everyone showing their magic powers off. So, maybe do this one while you're eating a sandwich. Oh, there you go, with a nice left hook. Oh, that's a left cross, sorry. Uppercut. Oh, Jean Grey's got a knife. That woman has absolutely no conscience whatsoever. She will cut you. Don't remember playing this one. What is it, Demon's Crest? Demon's Crest. And here's Gambit doing something or other, fighting this dude. That's nice. And if you follow it with your eye, it flows. He turns consistently. So very nice. So he's got to blow up his staff to get rid of this guy. Oh, well, the dialogue would seem to indicate, I always liked his staff. Like he's blowing it up, but he still has it in the next. That's going to hurt. That is going to take months of physical therapy to be able to use that hand again. Or, conversely, if you're in Fist of the North Star, you can walk it off in about 5 minutes and be ready to hold a pencil again. All right. Yeah, this is a... Oh, so she comes back to the old guy to let him know she did what he asked. The storm was, it is said that upon the passing of the master thief of Cairo, a desert storm of tremendous intensity raged over the city. The storm was a final tribute to a caring and noble man from his most beloved of students. And this is the same month as that rather infamous issue of Wolverine, where it's made of all the different swipes. Which even at the time, we didn't need anyone to point that out for us. Yeah, Generation X had just launched. Oh, so this was right around the corner from the Age of Apocalypse. The Age of Apocalypse was just about to fall on everyone's head. Oh, here we go. And Xavier has a bizarre and portentous dream out in Israel's Negev desert sand. So, yeah, that's leading into Age of Apocalypse, because the storyline that leads right into Age of Apocalypse is them time traveling back to, I want to say, Israel during the years before the X-Men were formed, and that's when Legion assassinates Magneto. So yeah, everything's just about to get thrown into chaos. Although there was an Adam X appearance in X-Men 39, so things are doing pretty well. All right, so that's another thing Unlimited gives you, is usually you got at least a couple nice, not decent, but nice pinups. Here's Steve Epting of the earliest X-Men, although there's no Sage, no explaining that. The original Brotherhood of Evil Mutants by Paul Martin Smith. Oh, and this was put to Jack, so this was after his death. This must have been drawn. Not the group of characters that most people probably think about first when they think about Jack, but that's certainly a group of Jack Kirby characters, if ever there was. Oh, that looks like Michael Golden. Yep, Michael Golden. Wow. If anything, the coloring is a bit tame for him. This Bishop looks like Carrie Gamble. Carrie Gamble. He still showed up periodically through this period. Decent-looking Bishop. Oh, whoa. That's a funky-looking Liam Sharp pinup. That's nice. This is what they were doing with Iceman at the time for a little while, until they basically forgot and stopped doing it. They were doing this big bouldery look. Sassy looking Jubilee. And that might be the cover. What was originally might have been the cover, but they decided to use that Epting instead. Just a guess. Oh, come on. Another Epting. Epting would go on to do a run of X Factor, where she prominently featured. So he's actually drawn a fair amount of Mystique. Oh, and a Tim Sale Wolverine. That's nice. He drew a mean-looking Wolverine. He did that. He did a couple Wolverine stories. He did one with Gambit. He did a team-up with Gambit that Jeff Loeb wrote. And it looks great. Early Tim Sale. Jeff Loeb, it's kind of a package deal. There's only so much you can do about it. But that's why you put up with Jeff Loeb, is because he liked working with Tim Sale. And Tim Sale was a very distinctive craftsman. Definitely still feel the loss there. All right, what do we got? Clearasil and Beavis and Butthead the game. Shut up, Nimrod. All right, what do we got next here? Okay, here's a fun one. How about a Sandman? Yes. Number 63. This was smack in the middle of the Kindly Ones. The Kindly Ones ran for over a year. The Kindly Ones, it rather set a pattern for later series in its ilk of having a really long final arc that wraps everything up but gets just completely, so lost by the end. And the Kindly Ones, it is a good story, but it is dominoes falling over. A lot happens in it, and a lot has to happen because it basically is everything from the previous 5 years of the book is coming back, and you see how he's constructed this rather complicated set of dominoes that take about a year to fall, all told. And, when you get to Starman, the last storyline in Starman, and I think we looked at it, a couple of these issues in the early run of the series, Grand Guignol, and it just goes on forever. And I don't even remember what happens in it because it was so long, and it lost my patience, even though I wasn't going to quit at that point. But the last storyline, I need to go back and reread it because my memory is that it just was rather interminable. Whereas at least with Kindly Ones, it's long, but you can't say it loses the plot because it's nothing but plot leading all these elements through to the very end of the story, basically. And there's 5 issues of denouement afterwards. But the climax of the Kindly Ones is the climax of the Sandman as a story, featuring the final fate of this character who we've been following for, at this point, 5 years, over 5 years. And here's an ad for one of the Lansdale and Truman. Oh, they got Sam Glanzman to do these too. I forgot that. Yeah, these Jonah Hex books were actually really well received at the time. People liked the Joe Lansdale, Timothy Truman, and Sam Glanzman Jonah Hex books. In fact, they got nominated for an Eisner. They won a Bram Stoker Award. Yeah, see, people liked these stories. The reason they stopped making them is because they got sued. Because one of these stories had a caricature of the Edgar Winter Group in it, and there was a lawsuit, so they stopped making these Jonah Hex comics. They did do later on this creative team, although I don't remember Glanzman, but Lansdale and Truman, they also did a series called The Kents, which wasn't a Vertigo series. It was sort of a DC series because it was basically about the history of the Kent family in Kansas in the 19th century, meaning it's about Bleeding Kansas. I remember it being a very good story. It's, a very underexplored part of the character's history. There are lots of stories about the history of Krypton, not a lot of stories about the history of, the Kents family in Kansas. And it's a very, very interesting, frontier Western. If you ever see it in a store, it's definitely worth picking up. Anything you see from Tim Truman, Joe Lansdale, solid stuff. And it might even come with caricatures of the Edgar Winter Group. So, yeah, this is Marc Hempel, who would Marc Hempel's big move was not with Vertigo, but he was published by what was in many respects a forerunner of Vertigo, Piranha Press. Piranha Press was around for years. No one remembers Piranha Press. It was DC's answer to Epic Comics, meaning they published a lot of interesting stuff. But like I say, it's not a very well remembered publishing slate for whatever reason. So it's always worth looking. Anytime you run across any Piranha Press in the boxes, pull it out. There's a chance it might be interesting, and you may never have heard of it or even heard of the people who did it because they put out interesting work under that line. And he did a series called Gregory, which was very good. It's kind of weird, but it was good. And that is, I'm assuming, what brought him to the attention of Neil Gaiman to do this run of Sandman. And he draws about a year's worth of the Sandman, and his style changes significantly. I think he's a better artist by the end of this run of comic books, because this is a fairly demanding story in terms of all the stuff that Gaiman is putting on the plate for this very dense run of comic books. So this is Thessaly. She's a witch character who was involved in the end game here because she was just, I think she was fed up with Morpheus at that point. So she had no problems whatsoever facilitating what eventually ended up being the demise of the Dream King. I mean, it's a 30-some-year-old comic book. Sorry to spoil it to you, but it is the whole point of the book, is basically that this man this creature has spent 5 years constructing a suicide machine for himself, of which she is a part. So she is, Thessaly has found Lita Hall, who was actually a member of the All-Star Squadron, seen in the 80s in many Roy Thomas comic books, the daughter of the Earth 2 Wonder Woman. Now, Crisis on Infinite Earths rather unmoored this character because there was no Earth 2 Wonder Woman for her to be the daughter of. So she ended up being the daughter of, I want to say, a character called the Fury, who was one of the young All-Stars, which is, it feels maybe like we're getting a little bit off the beaten track, but the fact is, and this is ultimately, as I get older, I think what I appreciate about Sandman the most is how good it was at paying off Roy Thomas stories. And I'm not being sarcastic at all. Everything here, about the Sandman character, and especially his relationship to Lita Hall, is built on bits and pieces of the Roy Thomas All-Star Squadron and the last days of the Justice Society as well. In fact, the character of Odin, he's a minor supporting character. He's in Season of Mists, and I think he has a small part in this storyline as well. See, this is chapter 7, and they still had like half a year to go. Lettered by Todd Klein. He also lettered The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck, which we're reading on the TikTok right now. Colored by Daniel Vazzo and color seps by Android Images. We're already in the era of the multiple colorists to create the finished product when computers are involved. So Odin and the Sandman, which is, essentially Odin in the DC universe, is about as far as Marvel's Odin as possible. He's someone more in line with, I think, a reading of, the myths, where Odin is this mysterious stranger who's, walking into town with a staff and means ill for someone. So he's come to see Morpheus about something or other. And he's come and he's an enemy. Your master has done me a great wrong. So he's here to have some kind of parley with Morpheus. He's coughing blood. He's angry. Oh man, that's a nice looking. That's your dude. That's your dude right there. Greetings, betrayer. So he's mad. And why is he mad? He's mad because someone stole Loki out of the center of the earth where he is bound by entrails with the snake dripping fangs on him. because that's what Loki's usually up to at DC. And occasionally that gets referenced in the Marvel Loki. But the whole thing about the DC version of the Norse characters, when they show up, is that they're as far from any kind of Kirby interpretation as possible. And here's some Star Trek trading cards. That's an interesting ad with the... You don't even see it at first. You got to look to see the Enterprise floating in the background. Oh, I don't... See, that might be interesting to look back and see because they got good comic book artists, fantasy artists, Joe Jusko, Boris Vallejo, Julie Bell. I don't remember seeing any of their Star Trek art. That sounds interesting. I might want to see that at some point. Man, look at this. Look at this. We spent so much time talking about, the writing in the Sandman, but just about every artist who worked for the book, and, we all have our favorites. We all have our problematic stretches, but pretty much everyone who drew an issue of that book knew what they were doing. They all looked decent. A lot of it looked great. And this is fantastic. Look at this. This looks like this is really fun to draw, for one thing. Just, for a conversation with two people just talking, they look really cool with the mist swirling around them and these ghost ravens. So he's basically here to fume at Morpheus because someone let Loki out of the trap, or out of the cage that Odin built for him at the center of the earth. And Odin has figured out that it's something to do with Morpheus. Now, the thing is, Odin thinks that it's just Morpheus doing something foolish. He doesn't really understand. No one really understands. And it's going to take a year for people to really see what's going on here. Oh, Sandman Mystery Theater Annual. Oh, man, this is a book. People seem to be reading this again. They came out with a couple compendiums, those big softcover books. People do seem to be taking to that format because I've seen more people talking about Sandman Mystery Theater in the last half year than in the decades before. So it's good on them for putting this very well-regarded material, back in front of people. Matt Wagner, Stephen T. Siegel, Bolton, Alex Ross, David Lloyd, Davis, Alan Davis, Pratt, Snaberg. Man, nothing but solid names drew that comic book. Oh, Guy Davis. Although Helen Davis would be an interesting choice for that. I don't think Helen Davis did a lot of Vertigo work. And there's Delirium. She's chilling with her brother, who always makes time for her sister, but doesn't really have a lot of patience with anyone. He's not really, ultimately all he has is patience. I always thought it might be an interesting challenge to write a story about him, but it would be very challenging. So she ends up, it's been years since I actually read through everything that was going on here. So Thessaly takes her to her apartment and then sets up to do some sort of magic. There you go. Well, she's a witch of the old school, so she has to murder the goat. It's been too long since I've needed to sacrifice anything larger than a rabbit. That'd be a lesson for me, Lita, and for you too. If you can hear me, nothing is harmless. So it's wash off the blood and sleep on the floor, or skip the bath and sleep in the tub. Choices, always choices. Oh, man, but just look. And this is actually, this is kind of similar to one of the short stories they did for the Sandman, I think it was like the Vertigo preview or the Vertigo spotlight or something. A very short story of a guy dreaming about climbing. This almost seems to be kind of a callback to that. So anyway, she's been sent on this vision quest where there's her in her superhero costume. Of course I'm not crazy. I'm one of the good guys. I'm the Fury. My feet are firmly planted on the ground. This is probably just some supervillain's mind control ray experiment. Resist, Lita, resist. But really, she's losing her mind because she lost her child to very crooked circumstances here, because that's ultimately why Loki was let out of the center of the earth, because they needed, and by Robin Goodfellow, the Puck from Midsummer Night's Dream, because they needed someone who could steal the baby of the daughter of the Golden Age, the Golden Age Wonder Woman's granddaughter, basically. People, I think, underestimate the degree to which Neil Gaiman was influenced by Roy Thomas. Perhaps not the coolest influence in this day and age, but he is all over. Roy Thomas is all over Sandman. The series would have been completely inconceivable without what he did and the company in the 80s. So she goes on her quest and she finds the Eumenides, the titular kindly ones. Oh, and he's having a conversation with Fiddler's Green. Oh, this, I remember this. This was a gallery with just a bunch of Sandman pinups, but, you know, we're talking Brian Bolland, Eddie Campbell, Jeff Darrow, Colleen Duran, Tony Harris, Kelly Jones, Malcolm Jones III, Mike Mignola, Mobius, Terry Moore, John J. Muth, George Pratt, Alex Ross, Jeff Smith, Baron Story, Charles Vess, Matt Wagner, Gahan Wilson, Michael Zulli. See, I don't know if they put this in the trades that they sell for Sandman these days. That's one to look for in the back issues. Because, I mean, just having a Mobius pinup would be enough for me to tell you to get it. But that's a murderer's row. The series was coming to an end. It had another year to go, but people knew this was the victory lap, so to speak. I always like Fiddler's Green because he's in the Doll's House, which is probably my favorite Sandman story, Doll's House. Absolutely fantastic. Cannot recommend Sandman highly enough. You know, it's maybe a little bit overpraised, but that doesn't mean it isn't good. And it's frustrating that it's overpraised because it is good. And it's easy to lose sight of that sometimes. Oh, and there's the Corinthian and Matthew, who had a nice little buddy comedy going here for part of the story. Oh, here we go. And this was the Sean Phillips run right before he took over Hellraiser. He did a good long run on Shade the Changing Man with Peter Milligan, and before that he did Kid Eternity with Ann Nesenti. So he did a number of... he was just a Vertigo guy for a while. Yeah, what am I... And this is Rose Walker's granddaughter. She's important because she goes back to Rose Walker in The Kindly Ones. Oh, and there's the crux of the whole story. She goes for help because this guy stole her son. And she's like, that's not how we do it. We do it Well, we only, according to the myths, they visit retribution on family crimes. So then they say, well, he went after your son. That's not our jurisdiction. But he did kill his own son. So there you go. That's your murder weapon. And so much of the previous, 5 years of the book was basically building to where it would make sense for someone to have enough of a mat on against this, invincible embodiment of a part of the universe that she would sick an actual, horde of demons who could do some damage on him. All right. Oh, there's Alyssa Whitney. She's doing the letters pages at this point because she's, I want to say, is she the editor? Or the assistant editor? She's been a writer in recent years. I've liked some of the stuff she's done. She did a book called Guild that I did a review of. I quite recommend as well. I don't recognize any of these names here. And here's dueling editorials by Grant Morris and J.M. DeMatteis because they were going to be republishing Moonshadow, which was originally published at Marvel's Epic. So they did a new monthly reprint of it at Vertigo. It fit like a glove, because a lot of the old Epic stuff was stuff that later on you would have found at a place like Vertigo. Or alternately, Piranha Press. So they're launching the Invisibles. Invisibles #1. Writer-creator Grant Morrison returns to monthly comics with the ultimate conspiracy. I've made it through the Invisibles. That's all I can really say. I think, I've said it before, I think I was too old. I think I was too old when I finally got through all of the Invisibles. It just was, I was too old. It went over my head. What can I say? This is towards the end of the Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon Hellblazer, which was one of my favorite run of comics of all time. And this last storyline, Rake at the Gates of Hell, actually features a race riot in London. Gruesome stuff. Kid Eternity 16. The very end of Ann Nesenti and Sean Phillips on the title. Oh, so I guess he didn't do Shade the Changing Man for that long, because he was doing Shade and Kid Eternity this month. But this was the end of the series, end of the Kid Eternity. Jamie Delano, underrated run on Animal Man. He wrote Animal Man for quite a while. Not a lot of people remember that. Elaine Lee's Vamps. Elaine Lee is definitely a writer worthy of rediscovery. I've liked everything I've ever read of hers. The Mark Millar Swamp Thing with Philip Hester. My favorite Mark Millar run, just about of anything, is his Swamp Thing. The Rachel Pollack Doom Patrol. Yeah, the first couple years of Vertigo, even down to this Moonshadow reprint, just solid all the way through. Death's Tattoo. It must have been a temporary tattoo they were selling. Oh, and here's telling you who from Vertigo is going to be at the San Diego Comic-Con in September 94. All right, so, and they had a subscription form for all of the Vertigo. And there's Speak of the Devil, The Invisibles. Created and written by Grant Morrison, art by Steve Yowell, issues 1-4. Jill Thompson, issues 5-8. Oh, there you go. I remember seeing that one. This was a big movie at the time. I wonder what people would think of this movie today. That I don't want to know. That would be some discourse with a capital D right there. How much time we got left? Oh, we still got some time. We still got some time. All right. We looked at an issue of the Sandman, and now for something completely different. Mike Deodato Avengers. See, now this is from, I think, right around the same time as that issue of X-Men we looked at earlier. Yeah, that was December 94. I want to say this is not yet, July 95. And in terms of the regular Marvel line, Heat, as far as artists go, Mike Deodato was about as hot as they had. He was very consistent. This is a period when he was doing 2 books a month. I don't know if he was still doing Wonder Woman at this time. He was doing Wonder Woman at the same time he was doing Marvel work. And he was doing 3 books a month for Marvel at some point with his studio, the Deodato Studios. He also had a run on Elektra as well with Peter Milligan, who is probably more familiar from his Vertigo work. So this is the last year of Avengers before Heroes Were Born, because this is issue 388, and issue 400 was the last story before Onslaught in issue 401 and 402, at which point they canceled the book and gave it to Rob Liefeld. So this is what was going on in the year that led up to Heroes Were Born. And this was the big storyline, one of the big storylines they had coming out of The Crossing, which was a real punch in the chops for these books. It just sort of, it was a mistake. It killed characters. It killed a lot of momentum in books. It wasn't good. It had problems. We've looked at part of The Crossing before. But they tried their best to dig out of it. Certainly, that was where the Wade and Garney Captain America came from, that impulse from that era of, well, we've been through The Crossing, so now we have to try something better. And that's also the era that we got Teen Tony from, and we've also looked at Teen Tony. So this was one of the big Avengers story after that, which has Cap and his Cap armor. So you can tell he's already dying, according to the storyline in his own book. I looked at the last issue of Marc Gruenwald's run on Captain America on the Tech Talk recently, and that explains, he was dying through the last year and a half of Marc Gruenwald's run on the book. And so the Avengers books also had to reflect the fact that he was encased in this armor. He wasn't yet in the Mark Waid run, although that would come very soon here, if not like this month and the month after. Pocahontas, I ended up seeing that in the theater through no fault of my own. Not my favorite Disney. Not my favorite Disney. Not even my favorite 90s Disney. So they're dealing with something to do with AIM and the Cosmic Cube in this storyline. There's MODOK. They're at one of AIM's, Caribbean islands, because AIM always has a Caribbean island that they're working from. So you got your mid-90s Hank Pym, your Hercules without a shirt on, leather jacket, Black Widow, and Crystal still, although I think Circe's gone by now, because she was gone in the End of the Gatherer storyline, I want to say. All right, so MODOK is doing something or other. Oh, Marvel Action Hour. I watched the Marvel Action Hour for my sins. These were not good cartoons. The toys were decent. The toys were about as good as the X-Men line. Now, the Iron Man toys were actually pretty decent, because you could put the armor on them, and so they had a dimensionality to them. They actually looked really cool. Fantastic Four went later in the Fantastic Four line, I think, was better than the early Fantastic Four line. Kmart cups. Okay. And see, they were trying. This was clearly a lesser product, even than the X-Men cartoons, which took it in the shorts a lot for not being as good as the Batman cartoons. But yeah, so they were selling all of the Toy Biz figures, right next to each other on the pegs, because they had the Spider-Man series, the X-Men series, Fantastic Four, and Iron Man, all going at the same time. And pretty soon after this, they had Ghost Rider too. Ghost Rider had his own line of toys very briefly towards the end of this period, because people like Ghost Rider. In the 90s, Ghost Rider was hot. That's something that I've seen people express a little bit of disbelief at in hindsight, but it's the truth. It's the truth. Oh, here we go. Cap is stumbling across a Super Adaptoid, I think. Who wrote this? Bob Harris and Terry Cavanaugh. There's Bob Harris again. Mike Deodato with Tom Palmer on finishes. So this is about as good as Mike Deodato could look in 1995. With Tom Palmer inks, this is a nice-looking comic. The one thing you can say about Mike Deodato is that he knew this reads extraordinarily well. There's a lot of Neil Adams here. Your eye is drawn directly by all of these design elements on the page. It reads better than it might look to modern eyes, who are going to see, oh, Combo Man. Combo Man. Everyone loves Combo Man. Modern eyes that might just see the stylization. It has solid fundamentals in terms of storytelling. Mike Deodato always did. Oh, and there's Superior. She's a C-list Captain America enemy. Her whole thing was she was a female chauvinist, which, was fun for, bring her out every now and again. There was a storyline where they tried to force femme Cap with drugs and science. It was, that was the Superior Stratagem, I want to say. That was bi-weekly in 91, I want to say. It's not as interesting as the description makes it sound. All right, so their Avengers are doing Avengers stuff, evacuating. Here, oh, it's Diamondback. Why is she dressed like that? No, don't remember that costume for her. Oh, and here's Captain America. These kids that were hanging around Captain America at the time. Jack Flag, I think. He ended up joining the Guardians of the Galaxy for a little while, of all things, in the 2000s. And I don't know what became of her. American Spirit, I have no idea. Oh, because she's pretending to be this other character, Snapdragon, I think. That's who it was. All right, so there, yeah, see, this is nice. This, I can't speak to the story at all, but just in terms of, sitting here reading through it, it makes sense. It doesn't look awful. What do you discard? I embrace. There you go. There's your Red Skull. Oh, and he's zapping her. Has he got what he wanted? Did he get what he wanted? Oh, see? It's fancy because you got to flip the comic. That's nice. That's nice. To do a big double-page spread like that, just about like this falling staircase, that is a very nice. If you doubt that Mike Deodato still knew how to draw all the way back then, there you go. That is a nice spread. It's a nicer looking comic than I would have given credit. Considering the story, you know, it's the dregs of this period. And there's the Cosmic Cube doing something or other. By adapting my form into that of the containing wall, but such total adaptation will take all my will energies. I will lose all ability for sentient thought. Well, there you go. Well, sorry, kid. It pays your money, you take your chances, I guess. And there he goes. But he's not in his armor. He was in his armor. Did he get it knocked off and I missed it? Or did he just take it off? Oh, it must have just got destroyed or something. Oh well, whatever. Well, there's more Dungeons and Dragons ads. And this is from the year that killed the company, where they separated the company into the different editorial fiefdoms that were all in competition with one another for resources. So of course they ended up just cannibalizing each other's sales and each other's talent pool. You know, there's a reason why the Avengers books weren't getting the same, Iron Man, Thor, they weren't getting the same caliber of talent that the X-Men books were. And part of it was because the way the company at this time had split apart, structurally. The X-Men, and to a lesser degree, Spider-Man, but definitely the X-Men books were getting all of the resources. Well, when different parts of your company have to compete with each other for resources, it's never a good thing. I'm not a business person. I don't really understand business, but that's how Sears died. All right, well, we only made it through 3, but one of them was a giant X-Men book, and one of them was an issue of the Sandman, so whatever. Well, we've had fun. We've had fun, I think. Check out the other videos on the account. I got a lot up here for your enjoyment that you can look at. Tell all your friends. That's how this channel grows, and we really want the channel to grow. We want to be able to continue doing this for a long time. If you want me to look at something specifically, maybe pipe up in the comments about that. I haven't taken requests yet, but I got time to fill. So maybe if someone wants to see something, make yourself known. Check out the Patreon, please. I got tons of stuff to download. There's a new 20,000 word ebook with just my recent music writing on it, free for download. All you got to do is sign up for the free tier of the Patreon. Hopefully I'll be doing some mailings on that fairly soon here. I've been seemed like the first of the year I've been just running, very busy. So some things have gone by the wayside, but I do intend to do some mailings from that free tier very soon here. Check out my daily comic book reviews on TikTok and Patreon. I post the same reviews to both accounts, look at a different comic book every day. I have a lot of fun doing it. People seem to have a lot of fun following along with me. I have a podcast with Claire Napier, Udder Madness. We look at Top Cow Comics. That's Marc Silvestri, Michael Turner, Witchblade, The Darkness, Fathom, all that fun stuff. We have a Patreon. We have YouTube. We have videos just a couple clicks away from here. I just recently put up annotations of our conversation about The Darkness, for instance. What else? We also have Spotify and SoundCloud. And just look at the Patreon. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Be kind to animals and small children. Please be well, and I'll see you next time.